So I'm Corey Kaler. I'm the Senior Deputy Director of the Rental Housing Association. Our group has been around for about 60 years. We represent people who own and manage residential rental property. We don't do mobile homes and that. We do single-family homes all the way to apartments. We are merging with our state organization. So instead of RHA of Sacramento Valley, will be called the California Apartment Association of Sacramento Valley. We'll still provide all the same products and services, but, and I'll explain those to you in a little bit. I'm a rental owner myself. I own 13 single-family homes in the county of Sacramento. So, you know, like you, if you get the call at 2 in the morning for the backed up toilet, I do too. So we all have our problem stories. It's a interesting industry. I grew up in it. My parents owned rental properties, helped me get through school and that. So I feel like I, have a big part of the industry and want to make sure that, we're doing the right thing. We are talking today about security deposits for the most part. If you have questions about other things, I'd be happy to try to answer them as best as I can. I've got to probably be out of here at about 11:30. Okay, if you have questions about the new ordinance, we can try to cover some of those. If you have some questions about some other things, I'd be happy to try to answer your question as well. It wouldn't be appropriate without me providing, as an attorney, a legal disclaimer. This is not legal advice at all. This is information. If you need legal advice, you should see an experienced landlord-tenant attorney. And there are many of them that work in Yolo County. I am not one of them. In fact, I don't even practice law for the association. So I wanted to just explain what our association does. If you're a rental owner or property manager, we do about 350 classes per year. Anything you need to get by in this industry, how to find a tenant, how to turn over your property, how to maintain your unit, how to evict a tenant, we have a class on it. Companion animals, we have a class on it. And some of our classes are online. You can get them through our online portal, okay? You can take the class whenever you want, take breaks and watch the game and then come back and watch it. But we have classes for everything. We have 78 rental forms, okay? One of the things I'm going to be talking about today is the mandatory walkthrough process. There's a rental form for that. There's a security deposit form that we have. There's a move-in inspection form. We have 78 forms. You should be using most of them, okay? Gone are the days where you just let your tenant move in and say, you look like a good person, come on in. Here's the keys. Just pay me rent. You need forms. Everything needs to be documented, right? Because if you ever get into small claims court, you need to have documentation. All right. Okay, I will get to you in just a second. Let me explain. I would like to hold questions until the bitter end. I will get through my information as soon as I can, but questions regarding the issue, but did you have a quick question?
Yes.
Yes.
Is this a two-part meeting where somebody from the city is going to talk to us?
This is not a two-part meeting where somebody from the city is going to talk to you. This is a one-part meeting where I'm going to talk to you. If you have questions that I could try to answer, but we do have somebody from the city here, I will try to get those answered for you. Okay. And if you do have another question and I'm baffled because I don't know it all, you can contact me. I've got my cell phone number. I think my cards are in the back, or I will give it to you. Okay, even though you're not a member, you're part of this industry. We want to make sure that, you're good to go. Okay, does that help you? Okay. So again, I want to try to hold the questions to the end. Write them down. I see a lot of you have something to write with. We'll get to your questions. And I'm going to dive into this. Have you guys heard enough about RHA and what we do? Oh, one other thing. One of the things that we do, if you're a member, twice a month, we have a landlord-tenant attorney come to our office and answer questions for 3 hours at no charge. If you're a member of ours, you can come into the office and ask any legal question you want for 3 hours, and you are not charged, other than your membership dues. That is a great service, and we have the room packed every week. Okay? All right, there we go. You guys ready? Security deposits. What do you think? I'm going to be asking questions. What do you think the number one issue at the small claims court is in landlord-tenant law for disputes? Security deposits, yes, security deposit disputes. California Civil Code section 1950.5 gives us the legal definition of a security deposit, okay? In California, it means any payment, fee, charge that is used or to be used for any purpose, including but not limited to the following: default in the payment of rent, repair of damages to the premises, exclusive of ordinary wear and tear, cleaning of the premises to the same level as it was when they moved in. That's what you can use a security deposit for. That's the definition, okay? The amount of the security deposit is also defined in Civil Code section 1950.5. What is the maximum limit? 2 months? She's got it. 2 months for unfurnished, 2 times the amount of rent for an unfurnished unit, no more than 3 times the monthly rent for a furnished unit. Then we get questions about, well, what is a furnished unit? Does that mean a stool in the corner? No, it does not. You have to pass the reasonable test with the judge. Your Honor, it had a couch, it had a table, it had this, it had that. The little stool in the corner is not going to pass the laugh test, okay? And most rental owners now, can you please hold your questions to the end, please? Do not furnish their units. And it doesn't have, it has more to do with not just the legal implications, but we've got problems with bed bugs in the industry now. And the question is, where do those bed bugs come from if you got a furnished unit? You know, I don't know. So that's one reason. What forms of payment can you take for your security deposit? Cash, personal check. Does anybody take a personal check here for their security deposit? Raise your hand. Oh my gosh. Why do you not want to take a personal check for your security deposit? Because they go bouncity bounce. We have had so many members take a personal check, hand over the keys. They find out that the tenant has moved in, or multiple tenants, and the check does not cash. And the tenant has possessory rights in there now. You've got to talk to a lawyer about, how do I collect now? Do I start an eviction? You go to the tenant and say, hey, your check bounced, and the tenant won't call you. They don't believe in text messages, even though they're real young. So you need to make sure that if you're looking at a security deposit payment, it can be cash, it can be cashier's check, it can be money order. You can do a personal check, but you're taking a risk, okay? And the Civil Code allows you to take a personal check. I'm just saying, as a risk management issue, you may want to think about not doing that. Because we have had lots of members, every class we have, there's members who say, you know, I got burnt on taking a personal check, and I'll never do it again. If you haven't been burnt and you're taking personal checks, something to think about. You can also take surety bonds. You can also do it's somewhat new, a security deposit insurance policy, but those things are complicated. If you want information on that, we have papers on that. I'm not an expert on those, I've never done one. The process, when do you collect a security deposit? Do you collect it after you've handed over keys? You collect it before the process is finished, right? You've signed the rental agreement, you've collected the security deposit, you've made sure it's cashed, right, okay. I don't want to do this as a trick question, but in the city of Davis, are you required to keep your security deposit in a separate bank account? Are you sure? I think it's a new law. No, you're wrong. I was just trying to trick you. No, there's no law, no local ordinance right now. There's no state law that requires you to put it in a separate bank account. Is it a smart idea though? Probably, yes. Is there a law in Davis that requires you to pay interest on your security deposit? Are you sure? Okay. Okay. Many cities have local ordinances that require interest on security deposits. Some rental owners in their rental agreement have provisions that require interest on security deposits. I think the day will come when there's a state law that's passed where you are required to pay interest on security deposits. Because in the end, it's not your money. It's the tenant's money. And your goal is to give every dime of the security deposit back to the tenant. That is your goal, okay? Sometimes things happen, I know, I see some eyes rolling, I've been there. But the goal is to try to give 100% of the security deposit back. That's the goal. In California, there is no such thing as an automatic security deposit deduction. California Civil Code section 1950.5M. I have seen some things that are a little scary here in Davis. Well, okay, so I'm just saying I've seen some language in some rental agreements that I think are extremely risky. And I'm going to tell you at the end what your legal consequences are if you violate the security deposit law, and they've been stiffened lately. But you are not allowed to have an automatic deduction from your security deposit, one that's non-refundable. Okay, in other words, if you say, we have a non-refundable key deposit, wrong. We have a non-refundable cleaning deposit, wrong. That is wrong. If you have that in your rental agreement, take that out, okay? Davis, I've seen some problems here. We want to clean that up, okay? Let's go to the maximum security deposit, or the maximum security deposit. So if you've collected 2 times the security deposit, and then you collect a key fee deposit, and a pet deposit, and this deposit, and that deposit, is that okay? No, it's not okay. You've got to stay underneath that 2 times the monthly rent limit, no matter how many deposits you have. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay. I've seen that too, where they've collected the maximum, and then they're collecting a key deposit, a pet deposit. That is illegal in California. That includes last month's rent, right. You've got to stay underneath that 2 times if you're going to, or at 2 times if you're going to remain legal, all right? How many days, once you get physical possession of the property back, do you have to return any portion of the security deposit to the tenant? How many days? 21. Is that business days or calendar days? Calendar days. Does that mean it needs to be in the hand of the tenant 21 days or postmarked? Postmarked. All right. We got some smart people here. All right. So, what is the number one way that we get physical possession of the property back, typically? Return of the keys. Is that the only way? No. There's lots of different ways to get physical possession of the property back, but typically it's keys. Excuse me. Typically it's keys. I just was done fighting a cold, so excuse me. In California, you're required to provide receipts, right, and documentation if you deduct more than $125 from your security deposit. You can also provide your itemized security deposit statement to the tenant in electronic format. That was a new state law a couple years ago. You know, we're all using emails and text messages. So you can email your itemization statement back to them. You still got to return the physical money another way, but you can email the itemization statement to them, right? Okay. Some special considerations, pet deposits. Who in the room collects a separate pet deposit? You're telling me not one of you have collected a pet deposit? I'm not going to make fun of you at all. Okay, I mean, all of our tenants have pets, parakeets, lizards, snakes, dogs, kitties. You can collect a separate deposit. That deposit cannot be above the 2 times the monthly rent for an unfurnished unit, right? The problem with collecting a pet deposit is this, though, and keep this in mind. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what to think about. When you collect a pet deposit and you label it such, when your tenant vacates the property and you do your inspection, right? And you go through and you look at the property, if there was any damage and it wasn't done by the pet, you can't deduct it from the security deposit. You can only deduct it from the pet deposit because the damage from the pet has to be limited by the pet deposit amount. But if you collect a security deposit, right, that may be a little bit more because they've got fluffy, then you can collect damage beyond normal wear and tear for the dog, for the person, whatever. Gives you much more flexibility as the owner or manager, right? One of the things I want to talk about, though, and hopefully you all are aware of it, is the mandatory walkthrough process. Okay, this is an entire class in and of itself. Okay, but it's a California law. It's connected to the security deposit in this way. Is everybody aware of the mandatory walkthrough process? You guys aware of what this means? Because it's been law for like 8 years now. Here's what it means, and I'm going to run through it with you a little bit. It requires the rental owner to offer the resident in writing a walkthrough of the unit no earlier than 2 weeks prior to the termination of the tenancy. What's the purpose behind this? The purpose is the California legislature wanted to give tenants an opportunity to correct any deficiencies in the unit to get more of their deposit back. That's the purpose. Okay, the state legislature said, we want the tenant to be given an opportunity to correct whatever deficiencies might be in there so they can get more of their deposit back. Sounds good, that's fine. I mean, hey, maybe it reduces the amount of work you have to do. So what it means is that you've got to do it in writing, so there has to be a form. You've got to give the tenant the option to do an initial inspection, and you've got to give the tenant the option to be present during the inspection. We have a form for this at RHA. You do not have to be a member to get the form, okay? You don't. Again, and the purpose is to give more of the deposit to the tenant back. If requested by the resident, the owner must make an initial inspection of the premises, the unit, but no earlier than 2 weeks before the termination date. And what you're doing is you're going through the rental unit using a inspection form to identify deficiencies in the unit, right? That the tenant can correct, that is consistent with your rental agreement. What does that mean? That means that if you have something in your rental agreement that says, tenant, you cannot fix electrical issues because there's a certain health and safety issue with that, that walkthrough process does not have to identify if there's an electrical problem for the tenant to fix, because that's inconsistent with your rental agreement. These are only items that are deficient with the unit that are consistent with your rental agreement. Then what you do is, once you've done the walkthrough, you provide a copy of that itemized statement to the tenant. So between the time that you've finished the inspection and the termination date, the tenant has that window of time in order to repair those deficiencies. When the tenant's vacated the property, you go into the unit using that checklist and making sure that those deficiencies are corrected. If they are corrected, those items you cannot deduct from the security deposit. If they're not corrected, you can deduct those things from the security deposit. But you better be sure, you got to be reasonable, right? You can forego this entire walkthrough process if you have a written waiver from your tenant. Actually, I think the state law just says a waiver. But do you want to take the tenant's word for it? No, you want to get it in writing, and we have a form that says, tenant, check the box. I do not want the move-in inspection. Many tenants, I think there's about a 60-40%. It's about 60% decline the walkthrough, about 40% do. I thought it would be much higher, but those that do want their deposit back, I think most of them who decline it just want to get out of there and want to be gone. Is everybody pretty much familiar with that walkthrough process? We have a whole class on it because there's questions about, well, can I deduct this? Can I charge for my own time? Actually, that's a good question. Can you charge for your own time if you're a rental owner doing your own work? Absolutely, you can. Now, if you're a doctor and you've got a rental property and you're managing it on the side and you go over and paint, do you charge your doctor rate? You know, whatever that is, $2,000 an hour? No. The judge is going to laugh you out of the courtroom and probably cite you for bad faith retention of the security deposit. You charge a reasonable rate for a rental owner that does painting. And then I know somebody's going to ask at the end, well, Corey, what is that? So I'm going to avoid that question and see if anybody asks it at the end because it's kind of complicated. Increasing the security deposit amount. Can you do that? Can you increase your security deposit during the tenancy? No? Yes, you can. Not with a lease, but if you got a month-to-month, and again, I'm assuming during my presentation you aren't all on leases, which you may be, that some of you do month-to-months, and that you all don't rent to students at Davis. Some of you may have other tenants other than students. You can actually increase the security deposit during a tenancy if you're on a month-to-month and you stay within that 2 times the monthly rent for an unfurnished unit. Why would you want to do that? Well, maybe the rent's gone up and you want to tack it up a little bit, right? Maybe you're $500 underneath the limit and they bring in Fluffy. And you say, well, I want to add the security deposit, maybe $250 to cover Fluffy's damage, right? So you can increase the security deposit amount. You got to put it in writing. You need to make sure they get a written copy of how much was collected and that, right? Another special consideration we want to think about is multiple tenants, multiple residents, right? Roommate situations. We got to hit that here in Davis, right? Get a lot of questions about this. So in California, all renters are what's called jointly and severally liable for all the terms and conditions of your rental agreement. And they should all, if they're adults, they should all be signed in the rental agreement, right? Everybody's signature should be on there. Anybody who's an adult, 18 and over. They all have an equal interest in the security deposit. The question we get often is, let's say you have 3 roommates and one decides to move out and that roommate comes to you and says, I'd like my third of the security deposit. Do you give that to them? They're demanding it. I'm going to go to Judge Smith for do you give that to them? Who would give them their third of the deposit back? No, you do not give them their third of the deposit back. That is the answer. You wait until the unit is vacant and return the entire deposit to all 3 tenants, right? If that tenant who moved out needs their money, they need to discuss that with the 2 who remain. That is not your problem, because in California, they're jointly and severally liable. Once you sign your name to that document, the interest of the security remains with all of them, whether they're there or not, okay? And at the end, what you want to do is you want to make out one refund check to X and Y and Z and mail it to whatever forwarding address that they give you. That's the appropriate way to do it. You can do separate refund checks. What most attorneys will say is you can do separate refund checks, but only if all of the tenants sign a written waiver to do so. Okay? Documentation, right? So we talked about the uses of a security deposit. Default in rent, cleaning to restore the unit to the same condition as it was when they moved in, repair of damage beyond normal wear and tear, right? So regarding the level of cleanliness and damage, what is the best way for the parties to identify whether there was damage done during the tenancy? Yes, you do an inspection during the move-in. A written inspection, which under the new city ordinance, you're going to be required to do. In writing, signed by the tenant, copy to the tenant. What else do you want to attach to that maybe? This is an advanced question. Photos. Photos are admissible in court. Actually, you know what I found out the other day? You know what else is admissible in court? Text messages. You can use text messages because it's a written documentation. Emails, of course, emails for a long time have been, you want to attach photos, date stamped, right? You want to make sure there's a date on your photo. That Your Honor, that hole in the wall was there when they moved in, or it wasn't there when they moved in. The oil stain was not there when they moved in. They brought in their motorcycle and did it while they were there. Your Honor, I got a photo that it was brand new carpet. I got a receipt too. I got a written move-in inspection report. This is damage that was done during the tenancy beyond normal wear and tear. It's not usually normal to have a motorcycle in the living room where the oil's being changed. And believe me, that's happened. I've seen photos. Many times, rental owners and property managers ask about the questions regarding the use of a security deposit during the tenancy for damage to the property. We had one issue where the tenant, I guess after a night of partying, ran through the garage door, destroyed the whole garage door. And the owner called us up on our advice line and said, can I deduct that damage from the security deposit? Well, the answer is no. That security deposit should not be used mid-tenancy for damage like that. What's your recourse? To fix the garage door and serve them a 3-day perform or quit. Right? Yes, perform or quit. Because in your rental agreement, well, your rental agreement should say you're going to take care of the place, you're not going to damage the place, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You damaged the door. I fixed it. I'm going to serve you a 3-day perform or quit so you comply with the terms of a rental agreement. And if they don't pay, what's your recourse? You can go through the UD process if you want to. Some owners figure, well, you know, maybe I'll just wait to the end and try to deduct it from the security deposit at the end of the tenancy and eat the cost, you know, during the tenancy and see what happens. I mean, that's one possibility. But for owners who want to collect the money from the damage during tenancy, that is the best option to do, is a 3-day perform or quit. Then we get questions about, what about unpaid rent? Can I deduct that from the security deposit? Well, during the tenancy, the answer is no. What's the best recourse there? 3-day pay rent or quit, right? If it's post-tenancy and they owe you rent, you can certainly deduct that from the deposit, right? Because they've moved out, they're gone. But if they're there, the security deposit shouldn't be used for the the non-payment of rent. That's what a 3-day is there for. And you can start the UD process a lot faster. That's the purpose of it. And remember, if you deduct your non-payment of rent at the end and there's other damage, you may have eaten into your security deposit that won't cover the other damage. You've just covered your non-payment of rent. And then you're doing what I did in my case, was you got to go through collections and garnish wages, and you know, that's the way that it is in some cases. We get questions about deductions and as far as cleaning, okay? The state law reads very specifically that you can do cleaning necessary to return the unit to the same level of cleanliness as it was at the inception of the tenancy. And we've already talked about the best way to do it is to document the condition of the unit when they move in, right? And you also want to take photos. It is, There is no definition in state law of what cleanliness means. Okay, I don't have an answer for you. Okay, does dust on top of the refrigerator that's there when they move out, does that need to be cleaned? I'm doing too many trick questions. Well, was it there when they moved in? If it was there when they moved in and it wasn't documented, or you got photos and the judge sees, wow, there's a lot of dust up there, you may have a problem. Okay, that's going to be the kicker, is what was the condition of the unit when they moved in? But if the condition of the unit when they moved in was clean, there was no dust, this thing was spot-free, and they didn't dust, you can deduct that from the security deposit. And again, use my doctor analogy. If you're a doctor, I don't think there's any doctors out here, or if you're a lawyer, you can't use a lawyer's hourly rate of $500 an hour to clean your unit. That ain't ever gonna work, okay, never. Okay, you can use a reasonable rate for cleaning your unit for a rental owner or a property manager. Or if you have a cleaning company, you can use a cleaning company and provide the receipts, because I would assume it would be over 125 bucks. Gotta provide those receipts and invoices with your itemized statement. Do not forget that. Repair of damages beyond normal wear and tear. Does anybody know if California law defines normal wear and tear? I mean, come on, this is an easy answer. The answer is no way. This is an entire 2-hour class that we have with an attorney trying to figure out what ordinary wear and tear means, and I still don't know, okay? But there are some good examples that we have in the class. One of them is you have a bathroom window that you bought and it's shattered. Is that ordinary wear and tear? No, because typically bathroom windows don't break. Bathroom mirrors don't break, right? So, but I'm not going to give you too many other examples because I'm still confused on it. So if you do not comply with the security deposit law, what are the consequences? What can they be? And I will tell you, there are more and more groups and organizations out there who are trying to help tenants recover their security deposits. Okay, security deposit law, as we started with the presentation, is the #1 reason you may find yourself in small claims court, okay? Because we're talking money, you know. The tenant argues, hey, the owner or manager deducted X amount from my deposit. I disagree, we're going to court. If you can't mediate it, and mediation can be a great alternative, you end up in small claims court. So what are the most common violations in small claims court? Not notifying the tenant of the right to a move-out inspection. Okay, if you do not notify your tenant in writing of their legal right to a move-out inspection, you've already lost. That is an automatic violation of California law. Okay? If you go through the normal process, but you don't notify them of their move-out inspection, and you go through the cleaning and whatever, and let's say you send them back everything but $100, and the tenant says, whoa, but you didn't notify me of my legal right to a move-out inspection. I'm taking you to court for $100. The judge in that case at the bench can cite you for 2 times the amount of the security deposit, and it's been done for less than $50. Okay, so let's do some simple math. Let's say you collected a $2,000 security deposit and you deducted $100 from it, and you're thinking, wow, the tenant's gonna be happy with this. You send your $1,900 back, the tenant finds out that you did not provide them the written option of a move-out inspection. They take you to court, and the judge says, well, I know this is only $100, but Joe, did you provide them their legal right to do a move-out inspection? Did you do it? No, Your Honor, I figured. So what the judge can do is say, okay, you collected $2,000, I'm rendering a judgment in favor of the tenant for $4,000, because they can do 2 times the security deposit collected. You collected $2,000, they can do 4. And I've heard it for less than $50 because the owner did not provide the tenant their option to do the move-out inspection. It's a very serious issue, and that legal consequence is actually in the state law. Okay. Number 2, most common violation, not performing the move-out inspection if the tenant requests it. Number 3, not mailing the security deposit itemized statement or accounting within the 21 calendar days. You don't know how many people I run across that still think it's a month, 30 days. I got 30 days to return the deposit. I mean, I've been around for a while. When was that? 30 days? What in the world? It's 21 calendar days, right? Postmarked. I'm going to start dancing here in just a second. All right. Not using reasonableness, again, I don't know what that is, in your cleaning and repair of the property being deducted from the security deposit. Okay, that's a little bit of a tough one because what you think may be reasonable, the tenant may not think is reasonable, and then you're fighting it out before the judge, right? This one is easier. Not including copies of invoices and receipts with the deposit statement when it's $125 or over, right? Because again, in California law, you're required to provide invoices and copies of receipts when it's $125 or more. When it's under $125, you don't have to do that, right? Is it a smart move just to do it no matter how much it is? Absolutely. And there was a case 2 years ago, I'm sure there's other cases where I got called from the media where a property management company, which will be unnamed, not in Davis, well, not that I know of, this happened in Sacramento, where they were deducting from tenant security deposits things from a bogus company. They were making up invoices. Bad news. And I took it to him. I said, that company ought to be criminal. I mean, if you're making up companies to take something out from the tenant's deposit and the work wasn't done, it's a civil issue now. I think that, that's a problem. The last one, not returning any portion of the renter security deposit that is owed to the renter by the owner. We've had cases where in small claims, the tenant is owed a certain amount. The owner doesn't go through the process of completing the itemized statement, sending anything to them, even though they were due some money back. Clear violation. And actually, that can be considered bad faith. Again, if you're looked at as, if the judge views you as having bad faith, it can be 2 times the amount that you collected from the security deposit. If you collected a $2,000 security deposit, that's $4,000. Not cheap. And then you've got attorney's costs and all that I'm sure they'll collect for too. I am 45 minutes into this thing, and I want to stop for questions because I'm sure there's maybe 1 or 2. If you have questions, that was a joke. If you have questions about the new ordinance, I would prefer not to get questions regarding legal matters like, hey, I'm going through an eviction right now. Can you, I mean, that is not what I'm here for. There's some great attorneys that can help you out. You can go to one of our legal Q&As if you're a member, but I don't want to get into strictly legal matters because, I don't want to give you legal advice. So security deposit questions, inspection questions, the new ordinance. Did you have a question in the back? And by the way, I will repeat the question for purposes of the audio and video.
I want to know, has there been a standard yet set for, because it's always a dilemma with carpet light, rake light, paint light?
Okay. Her question was, has there been a standard set for paint life, carpet life? The answer is, for carpet, the industry standard typically is what, the answer is you look at the manufacturer. When you buy carpet, you look at what the manufacturer says, and most of them have it on there, including paint. For paint, it's usually 3 to 5 years. For carpet, it's usually 7 to 8 years, depending on your quality carpet, lots of different variables, Excuse me? Her question is, she usually sets that in advance. That could be okay, but you'd have to distinguish between what some rental agreements I've seen that say you are going to have an automatic deduction from your deposit for a year that you're here, and this is not what you're saying, but you need to be careful in terms of having a non-refundable or automatic deduction from your security deposit. I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm distinguishing it, okay? And the real answer to your question is, you need to look at the paint manufacturer's suggested lifespan. They all have it, okay? When you buy carpet, and I just bought carpet recently, and by the way, carpet is, the trend really is not to use carpet. I mean, it's horrible for the landfill. It's not cheap anymore. I mean, the real trend is towards, laminate, and there's all kinds of options, and I have been doing that with my rentals. They last forever. You get more money out of it. You get a longer life. And carpet is horrible for the landfills. I did a little ride along with the County of Sacramento Solid Waste Management. The amount of carpet and padding, it's crazy.
What kind of life do you give on your laminate?
Depending on the quality, it's usually 10 to 15 years, 10 to 12 years. So, yeah. Okay, we're done. Oh. Look,
So I have actually a question. One is that during the period of the lease over or month to month or a year, you go inspect the place. The other one, if you want to notify the person, if you have a lease for 3 years, you want to notify the person that I want to walk through how you kept the property.
okay.
It's not because that lease is going to terminate. Just make sure that they keep the property. Is that possible to do that?
Can I rephrase your question to make sure I understand it correctly? You have a long-term lease, and you would like to go in and do an inspection during the lease
yes.
period?
Yeah.
And you're asking me whether that's okay?
Yeah, it's okay to tax the person 2 weeks prior to the time I'm going. Say, hey, I'm going to come there and want to check the property if properly kept, and instead of being damaged more.
Yeah. So, California. So, does everybody hear his question? His question is generally, he has a long-term lease. He wants to go into his property and do an inspection during the period of the tenancy to make sure that it's still there. And that there's
same thing happened.
and that there's no plumbing leaks and things like that, correct?
Something exactly happened out with floor that was hesitant for so long.
Gotcha.
Water was said. If I was going to go inspect that one, I would have prevented.
Okay. Okay. So
the person didn't notify me.
okay. So California Civil Code Section 1954 limits your ability to get into your unit. Okay, I believe there's 12 or 13 reasons why you can notify your tenant that you want to get into your unit. There is not currently a general, I want to get into my unit to do an inspection, but you can get into your unit to inspect carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, okay? So you can notify your tenant 24 hours in advance. I mean, if you want to give them a week, or what'd you say, 2 weeks, that's great. Sure. And you can go in there and do a preventative maintenance inspection, yes. And while you're in there looking at the carbon monoxide detectors and the smoke detectors, you're also looking around too a little bit, right? Hey, you got any other problems? The other thing that you want to do, and with the new ordinance that we have here, you will be providing your tenants with a residence rights and responsibilities form. One of the things on the residence rights and responsibilities form, it includes a contact information for you, for the tenant to contact you for any emergency. Is there a plumbing leak? So you want to encourage them to notify you ASAP, right? But the simple answer to your question is, you can use the process of notifying your tenant to enter the property, to do an inspection of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and if you have a good relationship with your tenant, they will encourage you to come in. If they tell you no way, you are not coming into my unit, stay away, that's a red flag, right? Did you have a question here in the front? Yeah. Oh, and by the way, just before you start, the handout that you've got, I see you've got the handout. That is one of our issue insights on security deposits. If you're a member, we have, I think, like 100 of those papers. Any issue that you need, we've got a paper on it for members. I'm giving that out as sort of a sample of what it looks like if you went onto our website and you said, hey, I've got a companion animal. God, I shouldn't have used companion animals. But in any event, we've got, papers on that. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question about the pre-inspection. If we miss something on the pre-inspection, say we missed that one rip screen and we didn't identify it, is it just too bad now? No,
it's not too bad. You can do so again, this is a 2-hour class. There is a provision in the law that makes allowance for the fact that the tenant and all their stuff is still there. And examples that they give is the couch that's there that's hiding the stain, the cat stain or whatever stain that is obviously you can't see because the couch is there. And you're not doing in your moving inspection, you're not moving couches and moving pictures and all this. So there is an allowance for that, and the answer is yes, you can deduct for that after they have moved all of their stuff out and they've vacated, and you realize, we didn't see this, and you've got photos, you've got documentation at the beginning and at the end, you're okay.
But if it's something I just didn't do my due diligence, I didn't look at that one window.
Okay, then that's on you.
Okay, so then I can't deduct that if I didn't identify that?
If your question is, if you miss the rip screen, but you catch it the second time, that is your problem. That's on you. But if it's something that prevented you from doing your due diligence, that was the example I was trying to give, the couch, the photo, whatever, then that is appropriate. One more question on this side, then we'll switch to that side. Did you have a question? Yes.
It's not a question. I'm probably preaching to the choir. But I've been managing real estate rental homes in Davis since 1974. In 2000, my primary residence received water damage, and we were out of the house. We wanted to stay in Davis, and every story that I had been told by friends or coworkers or former tenants we ran into in trying to rent a house in Davis. So I can say to the people, don't be angry at the city for this new ordinance. Be angry at the subset of owners who are just hideous.
Okay, so let me make a statement on behalf of the association. We represent 100,000 rental units in the valley regarding this ordinance, okay? This ordinance is, when you look across the state, there are more hideous ordinances. This one was a collaboration of the city, our industry, tenant advocates. There was a lot of stakeholders in the room talking about this. If you are a rental owner, this ordinance does not really require you to do much more than what you were professionally supposed to be doing all along. And I would be hard-pressed to argue with anybody if you have a huge problem with it. Yes, you have to register some contact information, but you know what? I'm a rental owner. I want the city to know my contact information, because if my house is burning down and my neighbors aren't going to tell me, I'd like to know that. Or if there's a problem in the neighborhood, I want the city to know it. And it doesn't have to be your contact information. It can be an agent. It doesn't have to be you. It just has to be somebody who can act on your behalf in a legal capacity. Yes, there is a new fee. I think it's $20 a year. I'm sorry, $20 I don't think is that big of a deal. Yes, it does require you to hand out a residence rights form, but you know what? tenants need to know their rights. I mean, yes, we are an organization and I represent rental owners all day long, but there is a need for tenants to understand where they need to go if they can't talk to an owner who is unresponsive. Yes, it does require you to do an inspection at the time of move-in. You should have been doing that already. I have no sympathy, and neither does our industry, for an owner who comes to me and says, gosh, I got to come here and do an inspection when they move in. Well, you know what? You know what it's protecting you from? Small claims court. It's keeping you out of trouble, and it's keeping your eyeballs on your own investment. How much is your investment here? It's expensive in Davis. You should want to see your investment. So the ordinance, I think, is really providing an industry standard, and other cities are moving towards it. It's just something that...
I have two questions. One is that when you do the inspection and your house is like the rental is, there's no nails or anything on the walls, then the tenant comes and they put their pictures and they put their whatever they want to hang on the walls. And when they leave, all the holes are there, and who is responsible to take care of it? Because you say, leave it as it was.
So the answer is not a cleanliness level issue, it's a damage issue.
So is it not
So
damage?
is that damage beyond normal wear and tear?
If you put holes on your walls?
Is it normal for a tenant to come in and hang pictures? Are these holes so large that you're going to deduct from the deposit? Or is it just a simple spackling and whatever? Is the entire wall covered with holes? I mean, I am not giving you an answer necessarily. I'm giving you things to think about because every situation is case by case. Did they hang
The mounting TV?
80-inch Costco TV on the wall with multiple brackets into the studs and said, I'm so ready to leave here.
Yeah.
If you've got some pinholes in your walls, and you try to deduct that from your security deposit in a wall or two,
Okay.
yeah, maybe good luck.
Okay.
That is up to you, but I'm giving you things to think about because it's all on a case-by-case basis. What's your second question?
Second question, then suddenly there's another person in the property. You have a lease with the tenant,
And they moved in Joe.
somebody moved in there.
And Joe moves in and is hanging out on the couch.
And
he's an unauthorized occupant.
yeah.
What's your question? What do we do about Joe?
Yeah, if he
So you got
damaged something there.
So you got a couple of options with Joe. I'm calling him Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's hanging out on the couch because Joe's got no place to go,
You
right?
should add him on the
You
lease.
you can serve a 3-day notice to perform covenant or quit, right? Because they're not complying with the rental agreement.
Yeah.
Joe's an unauthorized occupant. Or you can talk to Joe and the rest of the tenants and go, hey, what's Joe doing here? Well, you know, Joe needs a place to stay. And you go, well, you know, we got an extra bedroom. You know, maybe I don't mind if Joe stays. What would you do with Joe? You put him through the same screening that you would do the others, right? You see if Joe can pay, if his credit score is good, whatever else you do in your screening criteria, your written screening criteria, right? Everybody's got written screening criteria here.
Yeah.
And if you want to accept Joe as a tenant, you screen him, you put Joe on the lease agreement, and Joe's now an occupant, and he's paying you rent, and
So is there,
that's your choice.
yeah, the rent keeps the same, like the lease was, or?
That is
That's
your
it,
choice. If you
okay.
want to raise the rent because you've got an extra person there, that is a discussion between you, Joe, and the other occupants.
But I can deny if the credit score is low and he's not.
If it's consistent with your written
Yeah.
screening criteria, yes.
Yeah.
And let me say something about written screening criteria. You should be developing something in writing that identifies the major things that you want to see when you have an applicant come in. Minimum credit score, whether minimum income requirements, 2 times the monthly rent, 3 times the monthly rent, good rental references, all that. Put it in writing, provide that to your applicants before, and you'll do a lot of pre-screening because they will screen themselves out. The question was, can you whether you accept Section 8. Under California law right now, you are not required to accept Section 8 vouchers. Did you have a question in the back?
I just wanted some clarification on the 2-week notice prior to move out. Okay.
On the walkthrough.
The walkthrough, which I
so
do.
the clarification is you can't do it any before.
Okay, let me ask my question.
Yeah.
Can you send it to them before the 2 weeks?
Yes.
Can you send it to them via email, or do you have to post it?
No, email's fine.
Because with students, most of them, they just throw papers away.
Yeah.
If they respond that I declined via email, you're okay.
I'm not saying that.
I know,
So let me
but
answer
see,
your
they just don't
let me
even
answer
wanna
your
do
questions
forms.
as they came.
Excuse me?
Let me answer your questions as they came. Yes, you can communicate with your tenant prior to the 2-week window, and you should be, okay? Gotcha. That's running it tight. But the requirement is you can't schedule it in between. Got it? Okay. Then the question is, can you communicate with them via email? Yes. Then the question was, if they decline via email, can you use that? Look, the lawyer in me says that's a written confirmation of waiver, but you should use some waiver form, and we have one, for them to check the box and sign it. Now it's students. Will they check the box and sign it? Corey, no. I went to Davis here. I went to Davis here, so I know I would never sign it. But the risk that you're taking with just the email is a risk. Okay, I mean, it really is. Can we move to this side for maybe a question or two? How about her in the back? Wait till she gets you the microphone just real quick.
Yeah, may I know is Davis rental price control the city?
Wait, can she repeat the question?
Rental price control the city. Do you know, we check in the internet, somebody said, you check your city, is that rental price control the city?
Are you asking about rent control in Davis?
Yeah.
Do we have rent control?
Uh-huh.
We do not have rent control.
Okay.
Let me, You do not have rent control in Davis. But you do have a statewide rent cap right now. And some of you may not be aware of it. If you were a member of RHA, you would know this. Due to the California wildfires here, which devastated Santa Rosa and that, whenever there's an emergency, like those poor people with the hurricanes and that, many states have what's called an anti-gouging law. And it prevents people who are providing a product or a service from raising those beyond what's reasonable, okay? I don't want to give examples because I don't want to be on record of, trashing an industry. But for our industry, what happened was the California Attorney General triggered a current state law in the Penal Code, 396, that says in certain emergencies, rental owners can't charge more than 10% rent from when the emergency was declared. We are in that right now. So you learned something valuable today, okay? We are in that for the next 6 months. The governor just extended it. And this is statewide. This is not just Santa Rosa County or whatever. This is statewide. So as of, I don't even know when that was declared. It was like 3-4 weeks ago. You cannot charge more than 10% rent from the date of that declaration. That's a statewide rent cap. But your question about rent control in Davis, the answer is no. Okay, that's a local law. But right now, state law, until April 18th, I think, of 2018, you are under a statewide rent cap. No more than 10%. Learned something new today. How many didn't know that? Yeah, you learned something new today. If you were RHA members, you'd be, we want to go to this side? I can spend 5 more minutes. How about this guy? In the front row.
When does this all start again? This new program that Davis has? Like, I mean, if you have a lease that goes until August 31st of next year,
Yeah.
you can't do a move-in inspection now.
So the question is, if you're under a current lease, what should you do? That's a good question. This is not a new ordinance to me because I've dealt with it in the city and county. I think city staff would be, but my suggestion would be, hopefully you did a move-in inspection, so at least you can use that. Okay, it may not be on the right form, but if you get audited, you could say, well, look, it just took effect and I did the right thing. And if they're reasonable, and they are in Davis, they'll say, okay, you did an inspection. Next time, use our city inspection checklist and give the tenant the residence rights form now. Okay, you can do that mid-tenancy. Make sure you registered your property. Make sure you paid your fee.
Oh, yeah.
And you're good to go. And then when you're, excuse me?
I was told the form itself was not required. If we have our own or the RHA walkthrough, I was told that as long as it's documented walkthrough, it's acceptable.
So as long as the city okays that, right? Yeah.
We approved the RHA form.
Yes. So ours has been approved. I don't think what you want to do is find one on the street and go, hey, this looks good, without trying to get it. Then my suggestion would be if you develop your own inspection form and residence rights form, you need to get that approved by the city. Well, that's what we're here for. Woo, I'll come back for more fun and excitement. Let's go to this side. Oh, wait, he's got a question.
Yes.
Let's get the mic in your hand.
My question is, I have a couple of students in my house, and one is problematic since September, and he always argue with couple students as well in the house, the housemates. Now the issue here is because of that argument with couple student, only one student in that six student in one house, only one is the problem and causing the problem. And the latest one he did is because he has a good couch, he checked out my couch, put on the backyard, and he put his couch inside the house. Do you think those are the possible ground that I could terminate him because he makes the problem in the house?
Well, so you've got 6 people living under one roof and you've got one problem tenant.
Yes.
I would defer the issue. I mean, I think you may want to talk to a lawyer about it. I'm just not in the, I'm not in the position of trying to, work that through with you. One option could be, though, you give the problem tenant an incentive to move.
Because that is the problem.
When's your lease up? It won't be till what? August?
Next year. And it's
look,
all the students are complaining only against him.
I gotcha. So maybe, one, you may need to talk to a lawyer about your eviction options, if any. The other is maybe you want to have a talk with the problem student about an incentive to leave. And you could make it very rewarding for that person to leave. And you can figure out how that would be. Okay? Okay. Can we, I got like 3 minutes. Oh, she has a question, yes.
Yeah. So are we required to register, first of all, number one? Second, are we required to join the rental association?
No, okay. So,
and where are the, so if we're required to register, do we get provisions for the checklists and the lease agreements and all of that, those forms?
So the answer to your first question is you are required to register under the city's ordinance because it's a law. Now, I'm assuming you have a single-family home.
Yes, we do.
Yes, so you register, all the information is online. If you don't have access online, I'm sure staff will...
No, the website's not working. So...
The rental portal, it's working intermittently. We're having
problems. I was just on there yesterday. Okay. Well, then before...
The website is working. It's the online registration portal that is
Oh,
That part.
well, then maybe before you leave, staff might be able to help you out to get you registered. But the answer to your question, so you can get, that is something easy. But I want to make it clear, you are not required to join RHA. I am here just as a public service. I'm just giving you help that we can give you if you're trying to manage your properties. You are not required to join us, okay? This is not a sales pitch for us, okay? I mean, I was just telling you what things we have that could help you manage your property. And we have members, you know, you can do our free legal stuff, all of our forms, our classes, but no. And by the way, you can do that without being a member. Okay, you can get our forms, take our classes. What we do is we just charge you a little bit more we charge you non-member prices. So, okay? Where's the mic? Oh, hello.
Yeah, hi. I have one quick question on terminology. The use of non-refundable, because I've always just called it security deposit, but I notice your terminology is non-refundable security deposit.
Yeah.
Although you can't specify that any portion is non-refundable.
Well, and the term non-refundable is speaking to situations like where you have a non-refundable cleaning deposit. You know, I collect as an owner. I don't, but I'm saying owners collecting a $250 non-refundable cleaning deposit. Mm-hmm. That is illegal.
Okay, that's...
Or call it whatever you want. I collect a $250, I won't give back to you cleaning deposit fee. You can't do that.
Yeah, I understand that. My question was on the use of just the general term security deposit, which covers all the things we've talked about.
Right.
Are you required to call it non-refundable security deposit?
You're not required, but my point is, it's under law, it's presumed. Because the only thing you can deduct from the security deposit is non-payment of rent, right? Damage to the unit beyond normal wear and tear, and restoration of the unit to the same level of cleanliness as it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so what I've seen though in Davis, and not just Davis, and in other parts, is where owners are trying to collect fees or charges and saying, I'm collecting this and you're never going to see it back.
Okay.
You can't do that. Okay, not you. I'm just saying owners cannot do that.
Yeah, that wasn't my question. My question was just the general terminology, because in the information you passed out in the definition of Civil Code 19.
Non-refundable is presumed.
Presumed. Okay, that's fine. That was my
I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but you can't call it non-refundable.
Simple rule, you set it up at the end, not before.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause I want something before, you know.
I'll take one more. Oh, she's got one. No, that's fine.
Okay, so if we send back the security deposit and there's some estimations on there for repairs that haven't been completed yet, is there anything in the law that says exactly how much time we have to provide them with those receipts?
So the question is regarding estimates.
14 days from the time that the repairs were done, but what if we can't get someone in there for a month and a half to do something special?
Estimates are allowed, and it depends on a lot of, let me give you an example. So the answer to your question is yes. Mm-hmm. If you have to do an estimate and you can't get a contractor for a month or two, that's fine. Okay. The law is flexible on that. And let me give you a great example. Last year's horrific, well, we needed it, but the rains. I couldn't get a roofer for a long time. So if you have a roofing problem, but that wouldn't be deducted from the deposit. If you have whatever contractor problem, and we're in a glut right now where we can't find handymen and contractors, the law gives you that flexibility. It allows you to do estimates, send in your estimate documentation, and then return the security deposit once you've done the work, okay? I am going to wrap it up because I have to go. You've been a great group. We had a full Stacy has my contact information. If anybody wants to contact me, you can get my email address or my cell phone number. Even though you're not a member, I don't mind handling a question or two. But you've been a great group. Thank you.